And you are watching Headlines Today.
Those are very, very important questions, and Paranjo has been going through the budget numbers to try and make sense of this mystery of how he increases spending under all heads and yet brings down the fiscal.
Okay, see, every budget has certain underlying assumptions. These are given in the budget papers, especially the document on the implementation of the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. What this budget has assumed is in the next financial year, the year that begins on the 1st of April 2013, your gross domestic product in nominal terms will grow by 13.4%. Now, how do you break it up? You made a range in terms of GDP growth rates. One is the bottom limit is 6.1%, the top limit is 6.9%. If you assume that your GDP is growing at 6.1%, then you're assuming an inflation rate of 7.3% in terms of the wholesale price index. If you assume your GDP is going to grow at 6.9%, then your inflation rate is about 6.5%. If you take the midpoint and you assume that your GDP is growing at 6.5%, then you're assuming your wholesale price index is going to grow at 6.9%. Point is, you're not being particularly ambitious in terms of GDP growth rate, but here is the sad part of the story. You're also believing that your inflation rate is not going to come down. Your WPI or wholesale price index is currently growing at around that level, about 6.5%, 7%. But your consumer price index is still at double digits. It's above 10%. Your food price inflation is over double digits. So these are the underlying assumptions behind the budget, which also means that Mr. Chidambaram, whatever he might claim, the underlying numbers of the budget don't show a dramatic change in the overall
I just want to get some reactions from CII. We've got some industrialists joining us. We've got Rahul Shivshankar looking at some of the numbers that are coming out, which seem to indicate that there's a bit of a mystery where every head is seeing extra money being allotted to it, and experts really wondering how is it that the maths works out. Rahul.
That's right, Rahul. That's a big concern, and perhaps that's one of the reasons why the Sensex isn't so buoyant. Down at the moment, the Sensex, because some experts, and we've got some of them with us, some industry captains who believe that perhaps too much is being predicated right now on of realizing revenues, and therefore there still seems to be some convincing that needs to be done on the account of the fiscal deficit. Let's get a bit sectoral, because what we need to also find out from this budget is if it's actually going to create the growth that is going to lead to job creation. That's something that the BJP has been harping about. Where are the jobs? Where are the jobs? Let's get sectoral. Ankur Bhatia, Executive Director of the Bird Group, in our studios. Also with us, Bhaskar Pramanik, Chairman of Microsoft India, and Lawal Paddock, President and Managing Director of General Motors. Let me begin with you first, Mr. Pramanik. Sure. Will this budget create jobs overall and specifically in your sector?
So I think the budget was high on intent. That is the intention. If you're going to grow the economy, and especially even if you're trying to get it to 6 or 7%, which is what the finance minister is looking at, or if not more, we're going to need a lot more people. We're going to, across all different industries. And I think that's really what the intent is. And I think there is a shortage of talent in this country at the moment. That's why there's a huge focus on education. He's increased the outlays there. I think he's focused a lot on the skills and vocation training. I think all of that is going to be really very useful. Now, whether this will actually have that impetus on the IT industry is difficult to say. If I look at some of the other areas which he's talking about, things like DBT, direct benefit transfers. If I look at what he wants to do from a skilling and innovation perspective, that should create more opportunities for the use of technology, in that sense. So therefore, perhaps there could be a slight growth in the IT industry. I think he's looking at the semiconductor industry. He's trying to give 0% duty for the components industry, semiconductor industry. That's also a good sign. I think there's a lot of good intentions. I think if you look at angel investors, again he's simplified the process by which they can be and they're treated on par like most VCs.
So it's big on intentions and even bigger on assumptions. Mr. Paddock, would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really a mixed bag when we speak about the auto industry. My frustration is it doesn't recognize the fact that the industry is a big multiplier of jobs. So it's not just about manufacturing jobs, it's all the supplier jobs, jobs at our dealers, jobs at all the ancillary industries like finance and insurance. So we need to see a recognition, and we were actually hoping for some of those duties to be rolled back to recognize that the industry right now is pretty much in the doldrums. So Rather than that, we see a specific excise on SUVs, which is going to impact various manufacturers differently, but it's a sector that's growing. So from the intent of driving job growth, from the intent of driving excise growth, it seems to be a bit of a step backwards. Having said that, the incentives for investment, I think, will drive growth, and I think we have to look at the other more consumer-oriented aspects of this as having a positive trickle-down benefit, and that's going to put more money in consumers' pockets, and that'll benefit a variety of sectors, including ours. But from the type of targeted incentives that would really drive that multiplier, we were not seeing that.
Do you come away, Mr. Ankur Bhatia, after having watched and heard the budget speech, feeling that yes, investments will actually get a bit of a spur on from here on? Because a lot has been said about attracting it. The climate remains, however, to be still clarified, because it's the environment in India which holds back investment, not so much the policy at some level.
Well, I'll only look at the sector which we work into, which is hospitality and aviation. Now, in terms of aviation sector, we still have a dearth in terms of infrastructure when you talk about regional travel. The market today is talking about 35 million travelers of a population base of 300 million people who can fly. They can't fly because the airports they want to fly don't have the infrastructure to actually, host the flights where they want to get to, and also the metro airports. Now, what was also demanded was to actually do at least some kind of a talk, or even disinvest these airports, which could get more, more money in for the government to actually use, and also stimulate the sector as well, or otherwise.
So you're saying that
on
the
that,
budget is a little limited as far as big-ticket reforms are concerned, because that could have opened up more avenues.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very right thing what you're mentioning right now, because obviously if those could have been looked into, the multiplier effect. See, any one job created in aviation gives another 8 jobs across in other.
So that's how you feel. Mr. Pramanik, you want to come in?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the environment, the tax. I think, there is this clear intent to attract foreign direct investment and FII. And I think over the last couple of years, there has been some huge challenges in terms of the kinds of demands which the tax authorities have been making. And this has created a lack of clarity and consistency in terms of some of the tax practices. I think what I was heartened by was the fact that the finance minister clearly stated that the Rangachari committee report, the first part has already been published. He is expecting that the second part should be issued by 31st of March.
Okay.
And that actually takes care of one of the key concerns of the IT industry, which is about captive R&D and the taxation. He's also talked about the fact that they'll also come out with the safe harbor laws.
Right.
That, I think, will have a huge impact on potential investments, especially by multinationals in terms of R&D in the country.
Okay, well, mixed reactions coming out here from the corporate boardroom, Rahul, because there are some sectors which feel that perhaps their potential has not been tapped and realized. There are others who are looking at the positives in this particular budget, see room for growth. And one hopes, of course, that that does happen, because so much is predicated on the assumption of growth in this particular budget. And that's what's perhaps leading the markets to feel a little depressed at this moment.
This is the TV Today Network, and you are watching Headlines Today.